Hi, by now you're all aware that all the major organisations have come together and last night released a statement saying that lead will be banned voluntarily by 2024. Before we start this video, I just wanted to say that actually I'm kind of unhappy about the way this message has been delivered. There's been no groundwork, no sort of easing in of this information. In fact, everyone's just kind of dropped it on us. And as Mo, I am widely supportive of the fact that, this was always going to happen. I'm widely supportive of it. The way it's been handled is perhaps less than palatable to everybody, including myself. The real thing here is that a lot of pheasants get shot with lead, and the lead market, the market for that meat is, it's dwindling. Supermarkets no longer want to buy lead shot game, and with the impending ban of lead shot game or lead shot in Europe, that market will collapse as well. So this is just responding to that market, so it's either shoot less pheasants or shoot them with steel. And unfortunately, they've kind of got to blanket that because currently we're not supposed to be shooting lead at ducks, but there's a huge non-compliance in current steel shot legislation. So that's that. Enjoy the video. Change. Something that a lot of has happened in our industry, the shooting and game shooting sector, over the last few hundred years. What we're going to see is the announcement that has been made today that we're going to talk about will be looked back on by our children as something that it's just old-fashioned. So what has happened, if you've missed out on this, is that all of the shooting organisations have come together and have asked for a voluntary lead ban by 2024. That is a contentious point. What I think that should not be a contentious point is they have also asked for an end to plastic wads by 2024. And we're going to start by looking at plastic wads. The organisations have asked for an end of the use of non-biodegradable plastic wads. And the reason they've asked for it now is because there is finally viable alternatives coming onto the market. And in doing so, more alternatives will come onto the market. With a looming ban, more people will make more of an effort to produce these things. Currently, you've got the ED Eco Wad and BioAmmo. BioAmmo is not even really on the market. You've got the ED Eco Wad, but I am aware, but cannot say anything of more and new exciting things coming to the market to replace plastic wads. I think if you do use plastic wads, certainly outside of a clay shooting circuit where they can collect them, you probably don't care about the planet. And I don't say that in like a bad way, but we all are aware that plastic littering isn't wise, and one of our main defences as shooters and game shooters is conservation. And to say, yeah, I do conservation, but also litter, that's pretty bad. Anyway, we can all get behind that. It's the lead thing that we really want to talk about. So, let's go. Lead shot is a very contentious issue that is seemingly dividing generations of shooters. And I agree with the organisations when they say this. In consideration of wildlife, the environment, and the future of the game meat market, moving away from lead is quite a sensible thing to do, certainly for the sustainability of shooting. We shoot quite a lot of game birds in this country, and over the last few years that's become quite a point, internally, as opposed to anything else. More to the point, the markets for those things, the BGA doing a great job amongst other organisations and game dealers doing a great job of selling them, is shrinking. Or certain supermarkets do not want to sell lead shot game. It's a hard sell. We've been removing lead from everything for a while, be that paint or petrol or, pipes. This is just a continuation of that. People do not want to buy lead shot game. And with a looming ban of the continent having lead shot, the continental market may well disappear soon. We need to start reacting to this now as opposed to having the plug pulled and us losing this overnight. It's not just steel as an alternative to lead. There are alternatives in bismuth and tungsten, of which there is a separate video coming out later on, so we'll actually look into the science behind all those. There is alternatives out there. Some are better than others, some are more expensive than others. We're kind of unique in the UK by the quantity of shells that we throw into the air at live quarry. Not many other places in Europe, certainly, or America will go out and have a group of guys shoot as many cartridges as they do at live quarry. And needing to build a market for that, removing that lead is great. And I consciously have been using a bit more steel this season, and ongoing, obviously, I'm probably going to be trying to use more and more. there's enough science out there, and people may disagree with me on this, but there's enough science out there, there's a lot of science out there, that say that consumption of lead in-game, or lead consumption as a human being, isn't great, but neither is it that bad. However, as a pregnant woman or a child, it is bloody awful. Do you want to have somebody go into a supermarket and say, may contain lead shot, please do not have, may not be consumed by under 18s or pregnant women? It's not a great marketing tool. Moving to steel for the sale of game is going to be good, I feel. What they are not calling for either is a call to the end of lead shot for clay shooting, or lead in centerfire ammunition or rimfire ammunition, metallic ammunition, purely because they don't feel like below a certain caliber there is a viable alternative yet. Although there's not the variety out there. And obviously all of these people's main concern, you've got BASC, Countryside Alliance, CLA, JWCT, NGO, the British Game Alliance, SLE, SACS and MA, all have a vested interest in game shooting over anything else. So this is a game shooting orientated push over anything else, right? And a game meat orientated push. So at this point I'm going to start going through some of the Q&As that these guys have put together and put a few of my own opinions in there that may be a little less politically correct than theirs. What are the organisations calling for? Collectively, we are calling for a phased transition away from the use of lead shot in shotgun shooting for all live quarry. We are also calling for an end of single-use plastics in all shotgun ammunition. Agreed. I think that's the second part of that is great, and I would say that first bit's good. There's got to be some caveats, you know. Trying to find an alternative to lead shot, for example, a 410, is a little bit more difficult. And the quantity of 410 ammunition that is actually used in terms of poundage of lead going out is probably negligible. Seeing as 80% of cartridges sold are 12 bore, yeah, there you go, that's good, isn't it? Next question, why now? They say that the recent technological advances in shotgun ammunition, both in non-toxic and in plastic alternative, are the best they've ever been, and at a point where actually they are very effective, which I would agree with. The plastic alternatives, the illegal wads, are really good. The game ball fiber wads are also very good and very effective. And the steel shot cartridges out there are actually really very good at killing range birds. What this will of course upset is a lot of the high bird boys, but that's quite a minority, those who are shooting large quantities of high birds. It's possible that perhaps the market needs to change. This isn't something I need to go into now, but it's worth touching on that perhaps bird height will have to be slightly reduced, or potentially buy more expensive cartridges and reduce your bag quantity, or just pay for more expensive cartridges, because shooting 60-pounder bird pheasants, if you're launching £10 worth of ammo at it to hit one, then that's all right. And actually tungsten is better than lead for these high birds, because it's so much denser, it's twice as dense. Next, why is using lead shot a problem? As they've said, as I said before, it's all to do with the current market of game meats. Is actually trying to sell lead shot game is not easy, and you can have it lead extracted, but even then, wouldn't it just be easy to shoot them with steel shot? There's also a growing concern about, and we've known for a long time that shooting over wetlands is really quite bad. There's a growing concern that actually there's research coming in and research being done on the effect of using lead shot over farmland or farmland birds and the like. And there's a potential that it is quite it's not good. So, what are the alternatives? We talked about that already. And do they behave in the same way as one of their questions? The answer is of course not. However, having used lead for all of my life up until a very recent point, with the exception of a couple of ducks, it takes a little getting used to. Is it as good when you start? No. Is it as good once you've got used to it and sort of know its limitations? Yes, and in fact, in some instances, I'd even say it was a little bit better in certain scenarios. And to be fair, speaking to Nick Horton and the wildfowling lads a bit, they rate it almost just as good. Using the right ammunition in the right circumstances, it is just as good. You just perhaps don't take the chances you would have taken before, which isn't bad. Can I fire steel shot through my gun? The answer is there is almost definitely a steel shot option you can put through your gun, short of you owning a non-nitro proved gun, an old Damascus gun or a muzzleloader. Of course, in which instance you're going to have to start using bismuth, more than likely. We're doing a separate video on that, so go and check that out. There's going to be a lot more in depth. Next question. I was told this will be the end of high bird shooting. There will be developments of cartridges that will be very good at doing it. It's just going to be a very different way of looking at it and using perhaps different gear and learning a little bit differently. But as I said, tungsten is actually probably better for shooting high bows than lead. It's just more expensive. And steel, if you use the right ammunition out to 50 meters in superior proof with the right weights and the right shot sizes, is actually unbelievably good. So it's just a case of a shift in thinking. A shift in thinking. I can imagine all the conservative boys at this point saying, steel's crap. What about steel ricochets? Steel, of course, does ricochet slightly more than lead, because lead also ricochets. But apparently, and according to their research, it is more reasonable and more predictable in its ricochet. It's also worth mentioning that as a rifle shooter and a shotgun shooter, we've had to think about our backstops and ricochets and angles of this sort of thing for quite a while. Maybe that's just something that we add into our standard book of safety and teaching when we're teaching someone to use a shotgun. Just a thought. Am I more likely to damage a tooth on steel shot? I've bit down on lead, tell you what, that hurts quite a lot. I've bit down on steel, it's a similar sort of level. What I try and do is just not shovel food into my mouth quite so much if it's been shot with lead shot game. And if you're prepping and you look like it's been absolutely hammered, you just perhaps prep it a slightly different way. That would be my feeling on it. However, there is also statistics in here that state lead shot, or in countries where steel shot game has been a thing for quite some time, there is no difference in the amount of people going to dentists for steel shot or shot damage, tooth damage due to biting shot since the transition. Next questions, are American rules for shot ballistics different from the UK? Yes, they are. We have proof laws. They really don't. So they can get really heavy loads macking out at 1600 feet per second. That the same barrels that we have here could take, but if you're interested in doing that, and obviously breaking the rules of your gun probably will take certain pressures of cartridges that are not available from manufacturers. Meaning, start home loading if you want to start experimenting with the super fast, super heavy steels that are very effective in America, but probably not available over here for proof reasons. In fact, the CIP is actually looking at potentially increasing the line of superior steel so that we can actually start getting some of this slightly more effective, slightly faster, heavier ammunition over here that is potentially more effective because, well, a good cartridge is made up of downrange energy en masse, pattern versus density and speed and energy of shot. So, next, what about those of us who use large lead shot for controlling foxes? I would look at this in two ways, that perhaps maybe there is alternatives out there that we will get. As I've said before, tungsten is a really good option, and when you're shooting foxes, you're not shooting that many cartridges through a shotgun, so £3 a shot isn't too bad for shooting a fox. Certainly a lot of the lads I know shooting rifle ammunition, that's on par with what they're putting through their guns to shoot foxes with. However, there are alternatives out there in steel shot that are just as effective. Alternatively, a bit like the 410s, maybe there could be a caveat there. Everyone's just going to exploit loopholes, which is always the dangerous thing. I do feel like it's worth mentioning this thing is that there is a 70% non-compliance currently with people shooting ducks with lead. And I don't think that's helped our cause at all. People are always like, no, and nobody's going to bother. But actually, I think people do test and people do know, and that hasn't helped our cause at all, that perhaps... Yeah, it was interesting that nobody complied. I think it's interesting that nobody complied. So, are new cartridges being developed? Yes, as I've said before, there's some amazing stuff coming onto the market that I am aware of. There's some amazing stuff that is in development that will be imported at some point. And what is currently there is being expanded upon. So I believe Ely has brought out a 20 bore. They're bringing out a 2.5-inch shell. They are bringing out some amazing gear that will make our lives a little bit more accessible and easier when it comes to shooting steel shot, as the alternative that these guys are recommending, because it is on par pretty much with the price of lead ammunition, whereas the others are more money. So what cartridges should you look for? I really like the EcoWad 3s. With steel, you need to go up 2 shot sizes. With bismuth, 1 shot size. And if you're shooting steel through a non-steel proof gun, it needs to be nitro proofed and sub shot size 4 to guarantee that it is actually inside of that standard proof bracket. And there you go. Again, go and check out our film on what guns you can put it through. Are there some countries in Europe that have stopped using lead shot? Yes, Denmark, the Netherlands, and the Flemish region of Belgium. We had an amazing chat with Tony Franson, the Laxton Sporting rep. There's a podcast on channel, you can go check that out. And he's been shooting steel shot in Denmark for some years, including up to animals like a roe deer, and it is perfectly effective. It's just a slightly different way of thinking about things and getting used to your equipment as well. Taking a box of, or a couple of boxes of steel out and expecting to be absolutely ace with them, you're not going to be. They fly differently, they're completely different ballistically, and as such, if you're going to start making that transition, it's very important that you go out and check zero, go and check your pattern. Go and shoot through your gun at some pattern plates, an appropriate cartridge for your gun, and see how you get on. If you've got a multi-choke, don't be afraid to open your chokes up. We're all obsessed with choke, aren't we? However, there are some amazing guns. I think the new Breeder Zenith comes in super full fixed choke, and yet you can still put steel through it. And that goes for a couple of other manufacturers who use very long chokes, whose taper does not dictate any potential bulging that can happen if you're putting heavier loads through very tight chokes. Even though the Gun Trade Association say that it's not dangerous to get that bulging, it will just need fixing and reproofing before selling. So, next question. How have the countries got on with the alternatives? Actually, a lot of them think that they are better. They hunt more successfully than lead and have superior levels of penetration. Where it's so much harder, that is very true. You just need to adjust your shot size. If you're using a 30 gram 6, perhaps consider like a 32 grams of 3, but you're also getting more balls per gram in steel on size because of that lack of density. So it's just totally different. They are non-comparable if you're putting them side by side. You need to sort of relearn and rethink and put yourself into a different mindset track and not just be stuck in our ways, because this is going to happen one way or another. And I feel like what the organisations are doing is asking everybody to go voluntary. And I will be partaking in that, although I have got quite a large amount of lead ammunition to use up. Next season I will be using steel predominantly, or non-toxic alternatives predominantly. I think it's got to be worth trying to be at the forefront of these movements. It's got to be. Because there's no point fighting it. There's no point fighting it. That's not what I mean, because people are going to say, you're giving up. We're not rolling over, we're not giving up. This is a movement. This is a change for the positive. And think about it like that. It's all about positive mental attitude, as Sasha keeps telling me. All right. What do you mean by phased transition? The development of non-lead cartridges has been rapid and ongoing. However, there are still improvements to be made in availability and choice, especially for smaller gauge guns. We are therefore phasing the transition over a 5-year period to enable manufacturers to bring the products that are currently in development to the market. They're not asking people to stop using plastic cases just to collect them, because there is a market to recycle, and a lot of them are made from recycled ammunition. There is, as I said, bioammo. Their case is biodegradable. There's a lot going on, and it is very exciting. In a press release that was released by these various associations, they state, the group is calling for a support of the wider shooting community and says such a change will benefit wildlife and the environment, whilst also safeguarding the growing market for healthy game meat. And I would also say, in doing that, it will safeguard the future of shooting. So what, you can't shoot a 50-yard bird? Currently you can't shoot a 70 or 80-yard bird with standard lead shot without buying something particularly special. So you can then shoot a 50-yard bird with something particularly special, maybe even a 60-yard bird. And ongoing, we'll always find a solution to the problem. The problem being, I would like to shoot higher pheasants. There will become in the future something for that, right? Where there is a will, there's a way, and where there's a market, one of the cartridge manufacturers will come up with something epic. The closing statement on this was, while tradition is important in shooting and should be defended where possible, so is evolution if we are to continue to maintain our position at the heart of the British countryside. Shooting has changed greatly over the years, and this move is just the next step in our illustrious history. And I agree with that. This is another step onwards. We've got 5 years for a voluntary change before anything politically possible will happen. And I would urge people to try it. And I say try, I mean long-term try. Don't buy a box and go and say it's crap. Buy a large quantity. Find a large quantity. Get someone else to buy you a large quantity. Just try for a elongated period of time and see what you think. I've shot steel at clays, and actually, I tell you what, for clay shooting, it's brilliant. For game shooting, it's a different mindset. Before we finish, I just want to take you through the key messages from the statement, because actually they sum it up as well as I ever could. Number 1, the development of biodegradable wads for steel cartridges is a game changer. It means we can use steel without littering the countryside with plastic rubbish, single-use plastics. I think there is absolutely nobody who will disagree with that whatsoever. Regardless of the steel thing, the plastic thing. Number 2, sustainable shooting must benefit conservation and food. A transition to non-lead shot for live quarry will achieve that. Children and pregnant women will not have to avoid eating game. And all of the scaremongering that goes with that will be gone as well. How wonderful will that be, right? And number 3, the shooting organisations are committed to ensuring that a transition to non-lead shot for live quarry over 5 years does not damage shooting but benefits it. Shooting will emerge stronger from the change. And every organisation is behind this. This is not just a hate mask. This is if you are against this. Every organisation is behind it. And they do all, surprisingly, have the future of shooting at heart, which is great. Because that's where I'm at, and I hope you are too. And as such, you should really get behind it. Even if you're struggling with the steel shot thing, bin off your plastic wads, because as you saw at the beginning of the video, actually one plastic wad is pretty much the equivalent of 2 carrier bags. That's insane. Stop using them. Try out steel. Thank you very much for watching. It's been brilliant. This is going to be a really busy couple of weeks with a lot of debates out there. And if anybody wants any help, please go to your organisations, be positive, and we're here to help as and when we can. Take care, guys. It's been brilliant, and we'll see you next time.